Well, hello everybody. Welcome to a my border is not working episode of the Missing Wolves post-game live stream podcast thing. I just had some spare time in between patients today and figured what the heck. We have some actual news to report on in regards to the Wolves. Some speculation on what the buyout market and next moves could be, but figured I'd hop on here and answer any questions that Wolves fans have, anybody that's in the chat that's joining in. Want to kind of make this an episode where we're talking about whatever you guys want to talk about, but just to kind of rehash the trade deadline, just in not as many words as that's a weird way to put it. Just to rehash the trade deadline. Let's just be honest. Like, kind of lackluster, I think, for Wolves fans when you're seeing the Giannis Antetokounmpo news in kind of the headlines every single day. You're also seeing the Wolves are linked to everybody from Kyrie to Anthony Davis to James Harden. Like it's a really, it gets the juices flowing, right? As Anchorman would say. End of the day, though, the Wolves do make a couple minor moves. They trade Mike Conley to Chicago, along with a pick swap to Detroit to kind of dump off his salary, get back under the second apron. Or not under the second apron, get back under the first apron. And then Mike Conley is subsequently traded to Charlotte. It's important to note that those were both independent deals. Him going to Chicago, deal finalized. Him going to Charlotte, separate deal. That means that thanks to the old Andrew Bogut rule, Mike Conley is eligible to re-sign with Minnesota. For people that watched the game last night in Toronto, heard Anthony Edwards' comments after the game, heard Dante and Rudy's comments before the game at shoot around. Obviously, losing Mike even for a couple days kind of affected this team. Not so much on the court, like Bones was excellent last night, but when Ant's sitting there saying like, I hope he hears this, I want him back, when Dante says like he was my go-to guy, when Rudy says like it was really weird being on the bus, like all signs point to this deal kind of being a Tim Conley masterclass of, let's get under the first apron, dump the salary. The owners don't have to pay the $20 million in luxury tax fees. And then how do we ensure that Mike gets traded twice? Which, it's as Steve mentions in the chat here, I do think there was, I do think this was part of it. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be able to speak on it, just because there's a lot of tampering and insider trading stuff in the NBA that they can't speak on. But, a lot of people, when we were talking about like Mike getting traded, I was firmly in the camp of like, I would be shocked if Mike got traded. And when I saw that headline come down, I was shocked. Then when the reporting came out that Mike is likely to get traded again and likely to get bought out, and then is very interested in coming back to the Wolves, it was kind of like, oh, Tim Conley, you dirty dog, you pulled the wool over everyone's eyes. Obviously it's not a guarantee. Like, if the Nuggets go out and offer Mike Conley a vet minimum, if Memphis offers him a legacy deal over the vet minimum, there are other places that Mike could sign. But it just seems like this might have been part of an agreement with Chicago of, hey, we're going to trade you Mike, we're going to give Detroit this pick swap that makes your deal easier, hold up your end of the bargain, wink and a nod, make sure he gets moved again, and the team that he's moving to gets bought out. Which Mike, his contract also made the Kobe White deal work, with the Bulls getting Colin Sexton in. So it does. Again, if you're looking at the tea leaves and you're like me, a more conspiracy NBA journalist, it does seem like that this might have been all figured out before that trade went down. Again, I doubt anyone's going to be able to report on it or talk about it because there's a lot of rules in that. But I mean, if it ends up being they shed $11 million off of Mike Conley's salary, add Ayo Dosunmu, and then Steve Hartman again in the chat brings up, they get Kyle Anderson in a buyout market, and because they're under the first apron, they'd be able to sign Kyle regardless of how much he makes. this might be a very shrewd deadline for Tim Connolly. Before we get into buyouts, though, I do want to just talk about the Rob Dillingham of it all. People probably know I've been, I've been one of the guys that on the beat has spent a little more time with Rob just in summer league, in training camp, got a chance to talk to him quite a bit. Like, he's a really good kid. I feel like such an old man calling him a kid, but like he's like still so young, just 2 years into his career. He works his tail off. He always has a good attitude. He's always been like really vulnerable and like trusting and answering questions for me. So like, I really wish that guy the best. Like, I think Chicago's a good opportunity for him where they're not going to be looking to win a ton of games. I wouldn't be surprised if like, he's getting 20, 30 minutes there this season as the season winds down. And like, for Rob, that's what he needs. He just needs a low stake environment to just get minutes, make mistakes, and hoop. And I think with Rob, the fit, Chicago might not be the place that he like pops off and becomes like an NBA player, but at least to get experience. I think this is going to be a really good fresh start for Rob. And I will say, like, it's going to be weird not seeing him in the locker room. So shout out to Rob again, always fantastic. Every time I've got to talk to him, anytime I saw him in passing, like just a really, really good kid that works really hard. I think, unfortunately, the circumstances here of them needing him to be a 3-to-1 assist to turnover guy that's a better shooter just didn't work. But really hopeful he gets a fresh chance in Chicago. Spencer brings up Wolves lost their comedian in Lenny. Gonna be honest, Lenny is one of a kind. He's almost the opposite. Like, I have had very little interactions with Lenny. Everyone on the team says he's hilarious. Got to do a charity thing with him at Treasure Island, and like the dude was awesome with like the tribal elders and making like beaded bracelets and taking time for kids. And like one kid even came up to him and was like, "I'm sorry, Lenny, I'm the one that always trades you in 2K to get someone better." And Lenny like handled that with like a laugh, and it was honestly really wholesome. Lenny is another one of those guys, though. Like, he never really got a chance here. I mean, Josh Minot got more of a chance than Lenny. Like, he just never got a chance. But I think he is a good locker room. He works really hard. Seems like he has a really good attitude. I think, Chicago, hopefully he can get some more playing time and show what he can kind of do. With those two going out, along with 4 second-round picks, with which Tim Connolly, I mean, second rounders don't mean a ton, but it does limit the offseason flexibility of like if they want to move around in the draft or if they want to make a Giannis trade. Those are just picks, and Rob's an asset they couldn't use for that now, obviously. But in Io DeSumo, who comes to the Wolves, I kind of did kind of a quick deep dive into like what his season has looked like, just from I'm going to be writing about him. I'm going to be writing about him in a piece that comes out tomorrow, but like, he really seems like he fits like perfectly with this team. Dude shooting 45% from 3, shoots 55% from the right corner. That's typically the corner Mike was in that, Mike did not shoot 55% from. And then he shoots about 44% off the break. Almost 9 out of every 10 of his 3-point attempts comes off the catch. So that works great with this team, especially when you guys have guys like Julius, who loves just whipping the ball into that far corner. And also really good at drawing that double, hitting Dante, and then Dante hitting a guy in the far corner. And those weird kind of above the break spots. Like, now you have 2 guys in Nas and Io that can just like get the ball at the top of the break, top of the 3-point circle, and just lace it, which that fits perfectly in this team's offense. I don't know how much Ao, I think it's actually Ao, my bad. I don't know how much Ao is going to actually be like a quote unquote point guard on this team. I know that for a lot of people, they look at his height, they look at his position, and they think, oh, this guy's going to be the point guard. I still think, like, just being objective, like Julius and Ant are still probably the quote unquote fingers point guard, and Ao is just going to be a sniper coming off the bench on offense. Also plays really hard, like not afraid to set a screen, not afraid to get up into people on offense. I think that fits really well with what this team kind of has. He just plays with grit. He's kind of, Dante, I think, is a better player than Ao, but like he has a very similar to like Dante type of play style where like he's getting into it, he's flying in for rebounds, maybe not the best ball handler, maybe not the best decision maker, is just a 2.5 assist to turnover ratio, but dude can hit shots and the guy's not afraid to get into people when they're setting screens. And then on the defensive side, I'm going to be forefront in saying I have not watched a lot of Chicago Bulls basketball this season. I would wager that I've watched 2 Chicago games this entire season, and the Wolves were playing in both of them. So just looking through his like advanced stats of Io, like, or of Ao, like dude can defend shots. Like he's holding opponents to shooting sub 30% from 3-point line. Opposing guards, he's holding to about 40% field goal percentages. His like screen dodging like stuff is really good. Like the kind of just film that I again just kind of whipped through this morning, like he just looks like he's really active. He honestly reminds me a lot of Nikhil on defense, where he's really good at kind of shrinking in between the screener and the guard and like staying up and into him. And then he's really good at kind of like sliding his feet to not only make himself small and kind of get in that space, but then cut off a ball handler at the same time, which that's something that Mike Conley has built his entire defensive career on. That's something that Rob showed he was pretty good at in his limited minutes. And that's something they sorely miss from Nikhil leaving. So I think on defense, you're just getting a guy that is comfortable guarding pick and rolls. He's going to contest shots and he's going to force a lot of misses because he like contests hard, which again, you kind of look at what this Wolves team is missing. A lot of the stuff is effort stuff of like, is he going to get out there and just, you know, run that extra 5% harder to contest the 3? Is he going to get out? Is the guy going to get out there and just run all the way to the corner on a fast break? And Io seems like he could. Jake Klassen, who jumps in here, plays with his hands out, plays his heart out, handles, defends, shoots, plus he's young. I think it's Io, so not Ao. So I was right. Then I take back my apology, Ao. Appreciate you coming in here, Matt and or Evan from the Daily Wolves group. Ao Alexander Walker. Yeah, I mean that's kind of my preliminary read on him, is like he's worse of a ball handler and decision maker than Nikhil, but he's a better pure shooter than Nikhil, if that makes sense. Like he can hit down shots better. Nikhil would kind of go through those stretches. And then on the other side, he's just going to give you what Nikhil gave you in that kind of pit bull attack dog, getting into his guy mentality, which, that's what this team needs. Like, how many games have we seen Finch after the game just go like, yeah, they got to have better point of attack defense? Like, I don't think is going to be playing 35 minutes a night, but for 15 to 20 minutes, you got a point of attack defender that you can play alongside of Ant and not have to have Ant overexert himself. Dante doesn't have to get like blown up on screens every time. Like it's a really good option. That being said, I mean, people in the comments would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it as well. Would love to have that conversation. CD brings up of how fast do we think Io will play. That's the sneaky thing with the Wolves this season. They're top 10 in pace. Like the Wolves, I know it still seems like they're a plodding team. A lot of that is like, Julius. Everyone's seen the memes now at this point where it's, the guy dribbling into a dumpster wearing a Giannis jersey. Like that objectively kind of gives you this team doesn't play very fast. Rudy obviously doesn't play very fast. That being said, like the team plays fast. Like the stats don't lie. They are top 10 in pace. They play with good pace. I think Io is definitely a guy that can play with pace. Again, I think he's going to be more of the, like you kick it up to Dante or Ant or Jaden and Io just screams to the corner and looks for a shot, or he's coming back a half step slow, kind of in that Nas Reed role when Reed isn't out there and gets that like kickback pass for a 3. I really think he's going to be more of a like supplementary player. Like just again, he statistically and from kind of the vibe I get, he's just not a huge ball handling decision making guard, which is okay. The Wolves don't really need that at this point. They really need someone that can just hit shots. Like if Mike hit 45% of his threes, this team probably has 3 more wins. I mean, that's just truly what they need. In the other guy that they bring in, because it was a 2-for-2 trade, Julian Phillips, kind of raw, unknown. He had some good moments in summer league over the last couple summers. Never really broke into the rotation though. He was a McDonald's All-American before he went to Tennessee. He was an LSU 5-star recruit before he unrecruited and went to Tennessee. Really struggles with his shot, like sub 40% from the field goal range. I think he was around 30% from 3, like not a big offensive role, I would say, but on defense, it's very similar to kind of, I'd honestly say like his defense is kind of similar to Johan, where it's like, it's not disciplined, but he seems to be like kind of innate in just being in the right spots, which whether that's instincts, whether that's like scouting, whether that's like a growth point of his, I don't really know, but like the dude has a 7-foot wingspan. He's a freak athlete at 6'6" and was a former McDonald's All-American, which if you want to kind of like read the tea leaves on it, it's a flyer, right? It's, hey, this guy's really athletic. He shows some instincts on defense. If we can fix his shot, maybe he's a Nikhil type of player where 2 years from now, he's actually like making an impact on this team. I would be surprised if he gets any minutes, just because like Bones is still on this team. Jalen Clark's still on this team. You throw those guys in with AO and with with Io and the kind of top 6 that they have, like that's a 9-man rotation. I don't think he's probably going to get like Johnny Juzang minutes, which isn't great. Catching up on chat a little bit, King of B, who will be joining the show again in a couple weeks here. We need to move guys. We need more guys who play hard all the time. We have 2 exactly. Like you now have Dante, you now have Io. I would also add like Clark to that mix. Like Rudy is usually pretty locked in. Like they now have, I would say, more guys that are locked in than are out of their top 7 or 8 guys. Running with the Wolves, who I'll be on their podcast later tonight talking about it as well. The best part of the trade is they gave up nothing. Yeah, that's 4 seconds, essentially. Like the odds of any of those guys hitting relatively low. It does limit a little bit of the ammunition they have in the offseason. Rob's contract limits a little bit of that ammunition they'd have in the offseason, but like to get a top 7 playoff guy for nothing, that's on your, I mean, Lenny and Rob were both completely out of the rotation. Like they were like not even, I mean, barely garbage. Lenny didn't even get garbage time a couple weeks ago when they were playing. I mean, it is great trade. Having another consistent option off the bench. Steve mentions if Bones is your 8th guy, you feel pretty good. Exactly. Like this team now goes from having 6.5 guys with Nas to 7.5 guys with Io and Nas. Bones and Clark, you can play them both 3 or 4 minutes in the first half, see which one pops, and then maybe you go back to them. Johan probably, unfortunately, is going to be the one that unfortunately, that's a lot of qualifiers, as I would tell my wife when she is trying to explain me something. Johan is the guy that's going to get kind of cut the most by this, because I do think he is going to be out of the rotation now, unless it's a weird Rudy night or a weird Nas night. Like, or, you're going to be playing Nas 25 to 30 minutes. I would assume AO, especially at the end of this season, as he gets more accustomed to the playoff kind of rotation and who he's playing with and everything, I would assume he's going to get 25 to 30 minutes. All the starters get 30 minutes. Like you're very quickly running out of minutes. Do I think Io will play against the Pelicans or Clippers, given how short the bench is? Yes. Coincidentally, Chicago flew into Toronto yesterday, and Minnesota flew out of Toronto. So I would not be surprised if AO is already on his way to the Twin Cities or already here. I do think, when you're a bench guy and you've been playing minutes on the team that traded you, I wouldn't be shocked if he plays tomorrow. Unfortunately, Wolves aren't having media availability before the game tomorrow, so we'll kind of find out. I'll kind of find out as just as you guys do and Finch talks pregame, but I think he will play, if not the Pelicans, for sure the Clippers. Catching up a little bit more, Spencer Larson brings up Cam Thomas one time. No, I don't need to like start like internet beef because like every player in the NBA is a billion times better of an athlete, decision maker, and player than I am. However, um, Cam Thomas it has not been a good season. Sub 40% field goal, sub 30% 3-point percentage, worst net rating of his career. He's the third worst net rated player on the Nets, who don't have a lot of good players. Assist to turnover ratio is tanked from last year. It's at like 1.5. Like I think if Cam Thomas signed here, he wouldn't play. I just, in all honesty, I think Finch would go with Bones, Dante, and Ao over Cam, which we can talk buyouts more, but that's honestly one of the reasons I think Mike would be a great buyout guy is like, as long as there's an understanding that like we're not playing Mike over Ao, looking at Chris Finch, like Mike's perfect. He's not going to cause problems. He's not going to be like, hey, it's my time, I need to get minutes. Like, he's not going to yell behind the scenes. Like, I think that's the type of guard you would add to this team in the buyout market. Whereas Cam Thomas, I think, is a little bit more. I think that guy is going to go to a team where he thinks he's going to play 20 minutes a night, which, like, fair. Fair. That's Chris Paul, honestly, could be another veteran if Mike decides to go to the Nuggets or the Lakers or who knows. Like Chris Paul, it's expected he's going to get bought out by Toronto. Like, I think if Paul is in the mode of like, I just want to go help a team, I want to play with Ant, like that would be a good move. There's some guys out there. Javon Carter also, I think, got released by the Bulls, and I think he would be in a similar role where he can kind of give you something, but is not going to like cause a bunch of problems. Does Lenny's brother also play for the Bulls? I think so. I think so. I remember Lenny like putting something on his Instagram about his brother, and I think it was about him going to the Bulls. Bulls front court of Miller and Nick Richard. Woof. Thank God Bozzella still plays there, right? Like, ugh, that's the front court they're going with. They are guaranteeing their lottery pick, because I don't know how many people they're stopping with those guys. I'm going to throw us over to a quick ad read here quick as I get some hydration. Then when we come back, would love to talk buyout markets. If anyone has guys they want opinions on, guys they think the Wolves should go after, please drop them in the comments. If not, I'll throw out a couple that I'm expecting to get bought out, and we'll kind of close up with the show after that. But first, ads. Well, hello. Thank you, Livestream Andrew. This is Ad Read Andrew. And today we have Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, the presenting sponsor for the Missing Links podcast. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling strives to inspire people to follow their ideas, working with respect and understanding to create a quality, tailored result. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, located in Blaine and serving in the North Metro area, is here to help you with your building and remodeling needs. I can say personally, thanks to Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, I have a beautiful deck in my backyard, and countless projects that I started, they finished. Get started on your new deck or remodel today by calling Isaac at 763-710-5686. And we're back with another ad read. This time for Pence Homes, the presenting sponsor of Hitting the Hardwood Network. From the best tools and technology to transparency throughout the entire process, Nate Pence and the Pence Homes team is the top choice for buyers, sellers, and is proud to support you and your home ownership goals. Get started today by calling 612-308-1122 or by emailing info@pencehomes.com. Howls and Horns fellow post-game podcast, that's a really good listen. If you guys haven't heard of him, also says Mike Conley over Cam Thomas, are we serious? In my opinion, yes. In my opinion, I would take Mike Conley on this specific team over a Cam Thomas, just because I think in that, like, if you're saying Ant's the starting point guard, quote unquote starting point guard, Io is now your backup. I would, Bones is your third string in this situation. I would rather have the guy at the end of the bench like Joe, who isn't going to ruffle feathers, who isn't going to, go to the coaching staff and say, I need minutes, who's just going to be there to help someone out on the bet, like in film sessions, understanding the offense. I think the other like sneaky valuable thing about having those type of vets is like when you get to a 7-game playoff series, which I believe it was Steve asks about that. We'll get to that in a second. But like when you get to a 7-game playoff series and you're running scout teams, like Mike is smart enough to kind of in slow motion replicate a lot of what these guards do, just like Joe can replicate in slow motion what a lot of forwards can do in the league. Like I know he got kind of clowned a little bit for being like the scout team Luka Doncic last year, but like Joe is such a brilliant player that like if you're running a slow motion scout team, Joe's going to make the same passes Luka's going to make. They're not going to be as fast, they're not going to be as flashy, but like Joe has the same kind of ability in that sense. And I think Mike is similar, where like if you're playing against the Warriors, like Mike has seen and scouted Steph Curry enough to, at least on a scout team, be able to kind of replicate it in slow motion. Speaking of slow motion, King of B adds slow-mo and Mike for the buyout markets. That makes a heck of a lot of sense. You need another defender in the post. You want a guy that's not going to kind of tank the vibes of a team. Again, I'm not saying Cam Thomas is a vibe tanker, but like I would be very daring to guess at his age and with his talent, he is going to want minutes. Kyle, I think if he's signing an end of the season deal to come back to the Wolves and win a ring, like I don't think he's going to be sitting there banging his fist on the table to get minutes. And then you have a Kyle Anderson, Joe Ingles, Mike Conley end of the bench where like if somebody gets hurt, you're at least going to get like competence. It might not be good, but it is competence. Again, Mike is a competent basketball player. He's not hitting shots. His offense has not been good, but he's competent. You're not going to get like, pick 6 turnovers from him. They're great backup quarterbacks essentially for each position. Jenny adds slow-mo and Mike. I agree. Yes, that's where I would go. If it's not slow-mo, maybe it's some other vet that gets bought out that plays like that wing forward position. Just again to add more like depth and kind of like stability behind it. I think Kyle makes sense in particular because like he's played with Ant, he's played with Jaden, he's played with Nas, he's played with Rudy. Like he knows the offense. Finch trusts him. Like it's a guy that can come in and doesn't need like a catch up to speed class, kind of like Io might. Steve asks though, assuming the Wolves are done making moves, how many teams in the West do you take above the Wolves in a 7-game series? That's a really good question. I think the Thunder certainly is better. I think I would take them in a 7-game series, the Thunder. I have to think about it a little bit because the Wolves just do this weird thing where they're just incredibly good against the Thunder for some reason. But like getting Jared McCain as your backup, your third string point guard, I guess at this point, like that's a really good move. That kid's incredibly talented. When he's feeling it, he's a phenomenal shooter. They still have all the wing defenders. They still have all of the paint ways they can go, whether it's stretching with Chet or playing inside with Hartenstein, and they still have Shea. Denver, I think I would take over the Wolves at this moment. I think that would be like a 7-game series and then a coin flip for like who wins it. Jokic is just unbelievable this season. Like I know, I think everybody in the media says that every year, but like he is so efficient. He's gotten better as a 3-point shooter. I mean, before the injury, he was shooting 40% from three. He rebounds, he plays hard, he like holds everyone accountable, like with an iron whip. Like that guy is so good at just like leading that team by example. And then he is also maybe the most talented player I've ever seen. Like I'm a child of the 90s, so Jordan played while I was a young child. Uh, I would still say Jordan statistically is the best player of all time, but like Jokic is just, I mean, getting to watch him a few times a year is just he's so good. After that though, I wouldn't take anyone else. To kind of get back to your question, Steve, like I think the Wolves with this added kind of shooting, with getting their books a little bit better. I think everybody's going to have more clear roles going into a playoff series. So like, I think Houston, I mean, I said it after the game, it's a lot of Kevin Durant in Houston. I don't really like, I think the Wolves will have Houston kind of figured out and should be able to win that one. LA obviously has the star power with their big three, but like I again, like I just don't see them beating the Wolves. Like I think Luka is probably the best player in that series. Ant's probably the second best player. I'd honestly say Julius is having a more impactful, better season than LeBron. I would say Rudy might even be having a better, more impactful season than LeBron. And then it's probably like LeBron, Reeves, Jaden. Like when you have 3 out of the top 4 players in a series, like that's going to be a tough one to overcome. San Antonio, again, I think it would be a 7-game series, but like there's just some weirdness with that. It's a lot of like Wemby is all world, but he just is a little passive, if that makes sense. Like there's a lot of De'Aaron Fox where Fox just kind of takes it. There's a lot of Keldon Johnson. Like I think that team needs to just have another year, right? Like I just, they certainly will be championship contenders, but I just, it just feels weird still to me. And I've watched quite a bit of the Spurs this season because they're just a fun league pass team. Like it feels off. I don't really know how to explain it other than like it just feels kind of off. I mean, going past that, Golden State without Butler, like I no, I know they made some moves too. Like I don't think they're a I just don't think they're on the same like kind of playing field. Um, Clippers, I think will be tough when they get into the playoffs, but like they're not going to match up against the Wolves in the first round. So like I think I'd take the Wolves whenever they do run into them. Like I do think the Wolves will have a legitimate path to a championship as long as they keep winning games and not like stepping on themselves. Catching up on chat a little bit, running with Timberwolves. Cam Thomas is a 2K building. Yeah, that's kind of the thing with him is he is a really gifted player. He is a gifted scorer, but like this season, the percentages just don't equal out to like a productive player. And maybe that's Brooklyn is just so bad. But then you look at the net rating, the defensive rating stuff, and it's like Cam Thomas plays worse than the Nets team plays as a whole. Like that's generally not a good sign. Usually if you're like a depressed asset on a bad team, you have like a better offensive rating and defensive rating than the team does overall because like they're better with you on the court. Certainly you could say like, well, Cam Thomas plays all his minutes against starters and that's why it's a negative. But like he really doesn't. Like he plays a lot with the second unit as him being like the main guy. So I don't know. He's going to be linked here. Like every buyout player, whether it's as big of a name as DeRozan to as small of a name as Tyus Jones, every buyout player will be linked to the Wolves because the Wolves right now are a poppin' place to play in. Everybody wants to play with Ant. I do think a lot of people like Finch's system. I know it frustrates Wolves fans at times, but like when you're looking at a team from afar and it's like, wow, even like the 7th guy on this team is getting 5 shots. Like, I think it's appealing. Mini sports fan Conley should require ironclad end of the bench and not comfy rotation. Yes, I agree. Like I do think. And that's kind of my point with like the Kyle and Mike signings of just like they're gonna be solid. They're not projects, they're not gambles. They're just going to be solid character dudes. They're going to be solid in their roles. If you have to play them, they're going to be just fine, which I think when you're looking at like the 9, 10, 11, 12 spots on a bench, fine is good. If after the buyout market, Mike and Kyle come back, then you're looking at this team traded Rob and Leonard Miller for Kyle Anderson, Ao DeSumo, and Phillips. Like, yes, 100 times yes. Like that would be considered a massive win for this team. Steve, glad you agree. OKC, Denver, and then Timberwolves at 3. Just to kind of close, I do want to, just the moves that didn't happen. John Morant stays. KC adds a question here. I'll get to you quick and we'll close with that. Do you think Rob not working out is a Rob not being good enough thing, coaching staff not developing, or mixture of both? Um, that's an excellent question. I personally think it was a fit issue from the start. I think, and I've said this in other podcasts, but just to like kind of put it out there, is like I think Rob, through his entire basketball life, has been the best player on the team. Whether that was in high school, whether that's when he went to Donda Academy, whether that's at Kentucky, like his job has always been Rob, go in and cook. In high school, it's Rob, here's the ball, do what you want. At Donda, it's hey, Rob, here's the ball, do what you want. At Ignite, it's hey, Rob, here's the ball, do what you want. And in Kentucky, it was they had him come off the bench a lot of times when Reed Shepherd wasn't out there. So again, it was hey, Rob, here's the ball, do what you want. And then he comes to the Timberwolves, and the Timberwolves run a free-flowing kind of structured offense. And I don't think Rob had ever played in an offense before. Like I think Rob had always been just this guy that can get buckets. His court vision is really good, but like he's never had to like process those decisions before. And this is just me, taking what Rob has said like on record and kind of like what I see with my own eyes. And like no one has really said like, oh, Rob just doesn't know how to play in a system. But like just watching him, the like indecisions, the like not knowing if he should shoot or drive, the, kind of just whipping passes, kind of half-hazardly, a lot of jump passes. Like those things are typically of a guy that's just not figuring out the offense. And with the Timberwolves, you got to know the offense. I mean, you just do. Julius is a very structured player. Ant, as he gets older, is a very structured player. Like Jaden needs balls in certain rhythms. Like this team, although it looks chaotic at times, does have this kind of underlying flow, as Chris Finch always calls it. And it's really important to keep that flow. And when you're not used to playing in that structure and that kind of free flowing, like game plan, you see this coverage, you go here and then there and then this and then that. And it's all kind of like, split second evaluation. I think that's what we saw is he'd get a pick and roll. He'd see the defensive coverage and he didn't know what to do. And that's not a death nail. I mean, that's not the last nail in the coffin on a career. Many players come into the NBA and don't know how to play in a system. But I think for the Wolves, they put themselves in these positions where they don't have time to develop players. Would Rob be a different player if he was playing 20 minutes a night? Certainly. But the Wolves put themselves in a position where they're the 7th seed and can't play a young guy 20 minutes a night because they need to win this random game in February, a la last night in Toronto. I think that makes it really tough. I do think Rob has some flaws. I mean, the turnover things, the shooting is really tough. He is a small guard, which is just tough to make it in this league as that. But like he has one of the quickest first steps I've ever seen. His like floor reading, like his processing speed, I think is there. It's just it needs to catch up to the NBA, which I mean, I think everybody would say you need playing time to get that. So hopefully in Chicago, the dude gets 20 minutes a night and we're able to look back on him. I was like, man, I'm glad it worked out for him. Um, but that being said, the flip side of it is how many point guards in the league just never work out. I mean, every year there's a couple lottery picks that are just gone in a couple of years. So I hope that's not Rob. But to answer your question, Casey, I do think I think it more than blaming like Rob not being good enough, I would say like Rob wasn't prepared as well as he could have been. Like I think it is a thing with Kentucky guys where sometimes it takes them a couple of years to really figure the NBA out. And I think Rob, when you're such a dynamic scorer like that, there probably wasn't a lot of like offensive structure ever in his life until he got drafted here. And then like, boy, that comes at you quick. So, the coaching staff side of it, like, again, obviously they're not completely blameless either. Um, had this team won more games and put themselves in better position, you're probably seeing more Rob. And that certainly goes a little bit on the coaching staff. We're at the 40-minute mark, though. So unless anyone wants to fire in a quick question to close here, I am going to end the show. As I'm doing my spiel, feel free to throw another one in if anyone has one. But this will get posted over on YouTube and X as soon as I hit end stream here. And then I am going to throw it up on Spotify everywhere as soon as I can, just to have it out there for people that might be interested in it. If you're listening to this over on YouTube, subscriptions actually do help, so please subscribe. And if not, we'll be back tomorrow after that lovely Pelican games, hopefully with some AO news. Godfrey, as you jump in here at the very end, I don't think he'll be the starting point guard. We did talk a lot of AO, though. If you want to re-listen to the stream, always appreciate you coming in. Always appreciate everyone for listening, and we'll be back tomorrow after that Pelicans game.